Hey friends, so glad you're back for our See the Light, Yes You Can Draw Club. This is meeting 26. I'm so glad you're here. And I hope you brought a friend along so they can learn about how to be a better artist as well. We were working on perspective the last time that we were together, and we're going to be doing it again. In fact, what you need for today's lesson is pretty much what you had the last time. So let's review. You need 2 sheets of paper, regular size or fine, an eraser, a ruler, your standard pencil, and the only thing I would say extra, either some sticky notes or some scrap pieces of paper, and you'll understand why. They can be small. So remember when we were together, we talked about the importance of understanding drawing in perspective, and we worked on 1-point perspective. Perspective is when you take objects that are being drawn on a flat surface that are 2D and making it look like it has depth. In fact, one of the masters of perspective was the Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci. He spent a lot of time working on perspective, and as an inventor and scientist, he wanted to understand the science behind the beautiful art. Prior to the time of Leonardo da Vinci, most artists created drawings and paintings that looked very flat. They didn't look real, like they were in the real world. And starting about that time, artists started to really understand the importance of 1-point perspective. But what if not everything is looking down to one vanishing point? What do? Well, that's what we're going to work on today, and it's called 2-point perspective. So the first thing we're going to do is the first thing you do anytime you're doing a drawing that requires perspective, and that's put in your horizon line. So I'm going to be using a large yardstick since I'm working on my big easel, but you can use your ruler. So in the center of your paper, you're going to draw, and it doesn't have to be the exact center, but you're going to draw lightly your horizon line. Now remember, some of my lines need to be darker so you can see them. Now you recall when we were together, we created one vanishing point on the horizon line. A vanishing point is always right on the horizon line, and we put it right in the center. But not today. We're going to do 2 vanishing points, but before we put them in, let me just use something that you can see around the house to help you understand what I'm talking about. Now, supposing I were to take this tissue box. Now, if you're looking at this flat side and it's perfectly flat and there's no, it's not above your eye level or below your eye level, it probably just looks like a square. If you were to try and draw this in perspective and you want to show it going receding back, you might want to do 1-point perspective. But what if I were to put the edge closest to you so that you see this corner and you want to be able to draw both this edge and this edge because the corner is what is towards you? Well, that would require 2 vanishing points. So that's what we're going to work on today. How do you make a perfect cube using 2-point perspective? So now that you have your horizon line, you're going to make a vanishing point to the far left. You can either make a little X or a little dot, and a vanishing point to the far right. For doing our cube today, we're going to do it below eye level, which means below the horizon line. Horizon line is an imaginary line. It's really only an actual line if you're looking at the ocean or the sky meets the ocean. But a horizon line exists everywhere. Sometimes it's just obscured by buildings or trees. In fact, why don't you take a look at this amazing painting by our great friend, Gustave Caillebotte. Remember him? He's a master of perspective. In fact, it's called Paris Street Rainy Day. And if you look, there's a building there, a yellowish building, to the left of center. And you'll notice that the corner edge of that building is what's facing you. But the 2 long sides of that building recede to 2 different vanishing points. Caillebotte was a master of using perspective. Take a look at his paintings whenever you can to really understand how it works. So, for our purposes, we're going to make a cube below eye level. So, make a 4-inch line in the bottom half, right in the center, in the bottom half of your paper, like that. That's going to be the front edge of our cube. In order to determine
the other sides of the cube we have to draw both from the bottom and the top to the vanishing point. Now keep your lines light. I'm making mine a little darker so that you can see them. The importance of doing an accurate cube is making sure you're exactly to the vanishing point. That's my bottom edge. Now I'm going to do this side, right at that point, right to the vanishing point. Can you start to see it forming already? Now the top edge of our cube, again, whatever the length of that front corner is, right to the vanishing point. And you'll see it's creating these long triangles. So that will help determine for me where my edges are. I already have the top edge and the bottom. But what about the ends of the cube? Well, it's going to be another exactly vertical line. That means straight up and down. And the only thing I need to remember is it's going to be the same distance from the center to whatever I draw here as it is here. So I'm going to switch to my smaller ruler just so you can see my measurements. And I'll just make a line. It doesn't matter where I really make the line. I'm going to make the line first, exactly vertical. Once I have that line, then I can measure and do the same distance on this side. Make a mark, and now I make my next vertical line. Okay, so you can see I have my edge of my cube heading to the left, this one heading to the right, but how do I get the top? Well, it's easy. You're still going to the vanishing point, you just go to the opposite vanishing point. So, for my left corner, I actually draw to the right vanishing point. Lightly draw the line. And for the right corner, I'm drawing to the left vanishing point. Now you're saying, Miss Pat, there's a lot of extra lines there. Yep, that's what happens. Extra lines, which is why you draw lightly, so that you can erase the ones you don't need. So now you can see our cube drawn in perspective to our 2-point perspective. So if I take my great eraser, we love having a great eraser, now I can erase the lines that I don't need. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lighten these up because I want you to still be able to kind of see our lines, but I can make them much lighter. So if you're trying to draw a perfect cube, the other way to do it is to simply take your pencil and you can make these lines much darker or even shade them in. So here is our perfect cube because we used our 2 vanishing points in order to have an accurate cube. Do you remember what the cube is? It's a form. A square is flat, and that's a shape. One of our club meetings we talked about form. In order to make a 3D form, that's what this is, a cube, you need to be able to show depth. So the accurate way to do it for something that's a geometric form, like a rectangular prism or a cube, or even a triangular prism, is with 2-point perspective. Well, not everything in the world is a cube, we know that, but supposing you wanted to do a drawing of something like a house on a street. You would use the same principles, 2-point perspective. But I want you to do something a little different. We're actually going to have our vanishing points off the page. Now, I can do it because I'm on this large easel and my paper has other paper behind it. But you can do it by simply using sticky notes and placing them on the drawing table where you are or your desk, because we're going to draw a horizon line about the center of our paper. Again, but you're going to draw your vanishing points off the paper. So supposing you're working on a project and you're doing some buildings on a street or your house. You're going to want to keep your drawing somewhere where it can stay put, especially if you don't think you can finish it all at one sitting. Or you can tape it up onto a wall or an easel or a door. And then you can put sticky notes where you want to place your vanishing point. So I'm going to make my vanishing point. It's still on the line. It's on the line, but I just drew it outside the frame of the picture. So let's try and do a small house. Same principles work. You would start with your corner. So let's say I'm going to put it off to the side a little bit. Doesn't have to be in the center. And this is a corner of a little house. And in order to do the sides of the building, I start at the top and the bottom, but notice I'm going to my vanishing points that are off the page. And I'm not going to draw all the way, I'm just going to draw part way. That's going to be the side of my little house. This vanishing point's way over here, off the page, because not everything is at such a sharp angle like the cube we did. And the front of the house is going towards that vanishing point. Can you start to see it forming already? You'll notice it's not as sharp as the cube we did. Now, what about my top line? This is below the horizon line, that's fine. It's still going to go out to the vanishing point. And that would be the side of this little building. Now, I can make the length of this side of this little house as much as I want. Probably not going to be a cube. It's probably going to be more like a rectangular prism shape. That's why this side is longer. And if I were to do the top, I make sure I line everything up to that vanishing point. If you wanted to draw a semi-truck, this is how you would do the back, the container part of the truck. Same principles apply. Can you see how that would work? Where you want to make sure you're getting in proper perspective the back, the sides, and the front. You could do a train the same way. So once I have my perspective lines to my vanishing point, then I can get my vertical line, and then I can do a flat roof, or I can even draw a different kind of roof. But if this is my building, perhaps I want to show a road in front of it. Do I need to use two-point perspective for that? Well, here's the cool thing. If I wanted to do a path in front of this little house, it can just be one-point perspective. I don't need to make it go, since there's no edge, it's flat on the ground. I could draw for myself the lines that show a street or a road in front of the house. I can even make the road turn a corner or fade off. Not everything has to be a perfect line that goes to the vanishing point. But when you have parallel lines, in order to show depth, that's what you would use. Now, you can spend a lot of time working on both one- and two-point perspective, putting in windows or doors. All of the lines that are parallel to that front edge of the house. If the house line is heading to the vanishing point, anything on that surface has to head to the vanishing point as well. The edges of the door, the windows. It's a lot of fun, but it takes a lot of work and practice. A lot of artists, like Leonardo da Vinci or our friend Caillebotte, spend a lot of time working with perspective, and it can be pretty frustrating when it doesn't look exactly right. But don't worry, there's a really great verse I want to share with you anytime you're frustrated when you're doing a project or a lot of work. It's in Proverbs, one of my favorite books. It's Proverbs 16:3, and it says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed." Wow! Commit to the Lord. That means everything that you're working on, whether it's a hobby or schoolwork, a special project, maybe even a frustrating perspective study. Pray about it first. Ask God to bless it. Ask Him to be in it and to help you, especially when you get frustrated. If you commit everything that you do to the Lord, He says that He'll be with you.
Now, does that mean everything works out every time? No, but he'll be teaching you something in it. You'll be learning and growing because you're relying on God to be with you. So commit all your works, everything you do, to the Lord. Now, we're still going to work on perspective the next time, but it's not going to be linear perspective. Linear perspective means we've been dealing with lines, and that's why we always have a ruler. But artists use other means in order to show perspective or depth in their work, and we're going to be doing that together next time. But before we get together next time, continue to work on your perspective study, both 1-point and 2-point perspective. Practice making a perfect cube over and over. Try it from the left and to the right, high to the horizon line or really low. You'll be amazed at how great it looks when you've practiced and you have your ruler handy. Can't wait to see you next time.